I went looking for a single number that would explain why so many of us cannot put our phones down, and I found one that stopped me. The average person reaches out and touches their phone around 2,600 times a day. The heaviest among us, more than 5,000. Not calls, not messages you sat down to write, just touches. Small, involuntary reaches of the hand toward a screen, hour after hour. And the deeper I read, the clearer one thing became. What the brain scientists are only now measuring about attention, the ancient scriptures recorded in a single sentence, almost 3,000 years before the first brain scan existed. Think of your attention as the gate of a walled city. Whatever gets into your mind gets in through that gate. By the end of this, you will know the one shift your mind has been waiting for. And I can already tell you it is not the one most people reach for. But first, I have to show you why the thing you have been trying has quietly been failing you the whole time. One honest word before we go further. I am not a doctor, and none of this is medical advice. If your phone has its hooks deep in you, please talk to a counselor, a physician, or a trusted priest. This sits alongside that help. It never replaces it. So let me give the usual fix its strongest possible form. The smartest version of the willpower argument goes like this. You are an adult, the phone is just a tool, and with enough discipline, a good app blocker, and a weekend detox, you can simply choose to use it less. It sounds airtight. And for about 4 days, it often works. Then your hand is back on the glass before your mind has even cast a vote. Here is what most people miss about that moment. You are not weak. You are fighting in the wrong place. Willpower shows up to fight the enemy soldiers once they are already inside the walls, and by then the city is taken. The battle was lost back at the gate. Look closely at what the screen does to that gate. The feed does not hold you because it is interesting, it holds you because it is unpredictable. A study in the journal Addictive Behaviors in 2023 described how rewards that arrive at random keep the brain's wanting chemical firing without rest. That chemical is dopamine, the one your brain releases when it is chasing something it might get. The maybe is the whole hook. Every pull to refresh is a lever on a slot machine, and your hand has learned the game even when you have not. And here is the part worth slowing down for. The device drains you even when you never touch it. Researchers writing in the Journal of the Association for Consumer Research found that simply having your phone in sight, face down and switched off, left people with measurably less mental capacity for the task in front of them. I'll be straight with you. A later study tried to repeat this and couldn't, so take it as a strong hint, not the last word. But it fits everything else we know. The guards at your gate were so busy resisting the thing that fewer of them were left to actually think. It may tax you in total silence. This is not one lab's pet theory. Attention researchers, addiction specialists, and monks from the 4th century all landed in the same place. One large review in the Journal of Public Health pooled more than 120,000 people and linked heavy, compulsive phone use to more anxiety and more depression. A separate body of research ties it to worse sleep on top of that. The thing that promised you connection tracks with the opposite. If this is already landing, take a second to subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. It is genuinely how this channel grows. Because there is one question all of that research cannot touch. Science is brilliant at naming the cage. It can count your touches, map the chemical, and prove the silent drain. Then it hands you a screen time timer and walks away. It can describe the prison down to the last bar. It has never once handed anyone the key. For the key, you have to go somewhere far older. There was a man in the book of Job who wrote one line that reads as if it were meant for this exact century. He said, "I have made a covenant with my eyes." He was guarding against lust, but the move underneath is the one we need. Sit with that. He did not say he would try harder to look away. He made a covenant, a binding treaty with his own eyes. In the ancient world, a covenant was not a hope. It was settled, sealed, and final. He took the decision out of the heat of the moment and settled it once in advance right at the gate. And notice how precisely that matches the brain. The reason your hand moves first is that the craving fires before your conscious choice arrives. A decision made ahead of time is the only thing that beats a reflex, because it is already settled before the trigger appears. Name it spiritually or name it clinically, and you are pointing at the same human reality. There is a second line from the book of Psalms. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. Look at the verb, set. He is not battling the worthless thing once it is glowing on the screen. He simply refuses to place it in front of his eyes at all. That is the silent drain finding answered centuries early. Do not put the device on the desk. And a third from the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus says the eye is the lamp of the body, and that if your eye is single, the whole body fills with light in its setting that is about undivided devotion to God. And the tradition has long heard in it a word about undivided attention too. Your attention is a limited pool, and the phone is the great divider of it. What the monks practiced, the scanner is only now beginning to glimpse. They saw all of this long before the laboratory did. A desert monk named John Cassian, writing in the 4th century, taught that you cannot stop a tempting thought from first arising, but you can refuse to let it linger. That is the gap between the craving and your consent, described 1600 years ahead of the data. The Desert Fathers taught the same thing in plain words. Guard the eyes, and the soul comes to peace without anxiety. Guard the gate, and the very anxiety those studies measured begins to ease. So what does this actually look like in your week? That is where we go now. The idea behind it is actually simple. I want to give you 5 moves, and I am calling them the 5 gates. Hold the order because the order is the whole thing. First, cut the covenant. Like the man in Job, you settle one binding decision written down before the craving ever speaks. Not, I will use my phone less. Something exact, like, I do not open the feed before noon. You shut the gate once, on paper, so you are not redeciding it 2,000 times a day. Second, close the gate. Put the device out of sight, in another room, not in your pocket. Remember the silent drain. What your eyes never see cannot conscript your guards. Third, catch it. When the urge rises, and it will, name it for what it is. It is a thought, not a command. This is exactly what the desert monk meant. You cannot stop the first pull, but you do not have to let it stay. Fourth, stay. Do not flee the boredom into the screen. When the craving crests, set a timer and do nothing for 90 seconds or so. Urges work like waves. If you do not act, the discomfort crests and passes. Neuroscientists describe pleasure and pain as sharing one balance in the brain, and the idea is that if you wait, it levels itself again. If a move like this is landing, subscribe, so the next one finds you. Fifth, single the eye. Once the gate holds, train the attention you just won back. Give it one thing. When the mind wanders, summon it back. Gently, again and again. That is not failure. That is the repetition that rebuilds you. Here is why the order is not optional. You cannot catch what you keep in sight, so closing the gate has to come before catching. And nothing holds without the covenant first. Because without that one settled decision, every step collapses back into willpower in the moment, which is the exact war you keep losing. So keep this week small and real. On the first day, write your covenant in one sentence. Sign it, date it. All week, the phone sleeps in another room for the first hour you are awake and the last hour before bed. During deep work, prayer, and meals, it stays face down and out of reach. When the urge spikes, you run the 90-second hold. And once a day, you take one block of undivided attention, a single task, the mind called back each time it drifts. 5 gates, 1 week. Here is the thing underneath all of it. Your problem was never a lack of strength. It was a gate left standing open. Scripture calls it a covenant with the eyes. The research calls it a decision made before the trigger. 2 windows onto the same human reality, one ancient, one new. You are not broken and you are not stuck. You have simply been fighting at the wrong wall when the gate was yours to close the whole time. If even one part of this reached you, type the word gate in the comments so I know it landed. Then send it to one person whose hand never seems to leave their phone. There is more like this waiting for you here. You were never made to be ruled by a small pane of glass. You were made to be whole, and the whole begins the moment you decide what gets through the gate.